Stinky Popcorn Boys.
We watch movies and eat popcorn.
Hello. We are the Stinky Popcorn Boys. Just some boys talking about movies and how they made us feel. I am Patrick Basquel, and I have long hair that I have tied up into a ponytail.
Nice.
Actually, I don't know if I've ever tied it into a ponytail. And a bun, for sure.
It's a good length to do like a Revolutionary War, colonial America kind of ponytail.
Yeah, but then you get tickled on the back of the neck. I don't know. That's not the vibe for me,
That's
at
why they
least.
stopped doing it. But I'm John Gilardi, and I often wonder how long it would take for me to accept Supernatural in front of my eyes. Evidently, it doesn't take Matthew Slater or Christian Slater very much. He's like instantly bought in. He's like, oh.
He's like, I'm about it, dude. Let's go.
Yeah. But yeah, so we watched Interview with the Vampire. I think everyone says a vampire. I feel like that's like the Mandela effect there. Or what, you know what I mean? Interview with a
Yeah.
But anyways.
What is it? Interview with the Vampire?
Yeah.
Yeah, Interview with the Vampire.
But it's a early 90s movie written by her name's about to pop up because I can't remember it.
It's Anne Rice.
Yes, Anne Rice. Gothic kind of vibe and movie.
Gothic horror.
Yeah.
She loved her some Lestat. Lestat was a dude.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, that was like, and he was like sort of, and again, I don't know, but he was sort of like the continuousness of her books, I think. Like it's sort of like
so
this.
he's
like,
a recurring character?
Yeah, because he's in Queen of the Damned.
Interesting.
And I think that it's almost like way that she tells her stories is like through his adventures.
Interesting.
But like maybe through through other people's perspectives.
Well, that
You know what I
explains
mean?
the ending. The persistence of that character coming through. But yeah, so we watched this. This was my first viewing. What about for you?
This is I don't know. I've watched this movie maybe 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
It's very interesting because it's not very good, but it's also not bad. Like it's very much like a studio piece. In like sort of like that old school way where it's like, well, we'll get Brad Pitt. He's hot right now. And it doesn't necessarily matter whether or not he's a good actor. Because I think at this time, I think that his actingness comes and goes. And I think this is one of those ones where it feels like, I think he tried to get out of doing this movie because he hated doing it.
Really?
It's one of the things that I've read. You can tell that because he's talked about how he struggled with like being an actor versus being a famous person. Maybe it's only because I know it that it like colors it now. But like I remember at the time being like, man, Brad Pitt's pretty good. But then watching it now, I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of like the accents are kind of all over the place. Like it's good in the sense of, as I sort of like wind my way, it's good in the sense of that like sort of like old school studio, like here we are, we're making this big budget sort of like theater thing. But it's like on a movie set, we've got all these sets built, we've got all this stuff. And this is a big deal. But then like I feel like I can feel Brad Pitt trying to find something to attach to this. And Tom Cruise is just getting eaten, but not giving a shit about the accents.
Well, I think a lot of it is maybe the character too. His character's kind of, it's hard to understand how much of that is me losing him through the performance or me losing him through the character, and that's why the performance suffers. Because like,
yeah,
his character isn't that interesting. He's kind of wishy-washy. Like he starts off like mourning his wife and child dying and just kind of hates life and is waiting for an excuse to die. And then he is presented this opportunity like, essentially to be immortal, and he doesn't understand it at that moment, fair. And then he has this immortality, and like it'd be cool if there's some sense of torment or like torture to keep living, but he kind of just reluctantly goes on and he's fighting his morals there. And then his convictions are confusing with then you have Antonio Banderas' character who gives up everything and lets him essentially kill his family, and is like, I love you, be my companion. And he's like,
Yeah.
nah, bruh. And then like leaves him like high and dry. And it's like, what do you? And I just don't.
What do you
know
want?
I don't know what his goal is, because he loves
Yeah.
the daughter, but it's also he gets over her after like 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is, you know. Like he's like, all right, I'm gonna go hang out with this dude, and then everything falls. And then she lets him. Kirsten Dunst's character's like, you know what? We can break up. I'm gonna find me a new mommy figure. And then it just all comes tumbling down, and then he just it all falls apart, and he's like, "Fuck that! I don't want to." I don't know. Maybe that's the point. He's like, I'm done having companions. I'm done having I lost Lestat. I lost I forgot her name, Kirsten Dunst's character, and maybe
Claudia,
that's what it is.
I think.
But it's not very well communicated. And again, I think it's more writing than the performance. But maybe the performance was bad, so they had to cut around it. I don't know. But from what I see, I think what I'm feeling, I agree, but I think it's what's there for the character, and obviously maybe Brad Pitt's not doing the best, but
but it's also a hard character to do.
Yeah,
I would say, to have that sort of like nothingness, like that's like a hard thing to like.
Well, the annoying thing is he has voiceover, you know, so we get his internal monologue, but I still don't know what he's about, you know.
Yeah. Here's the quote from Brad Pitt. He's like, I'm miserable. If it feels like I'm miserable, it's because I am miserable. 6 months in the fucking dark. Contact lenses, pasty makeup, and the fucking the wig that he's got. He says he fell in love with New Orleans though. But then he's like, then we got to London and it was like dark. It was the dead of winter. And we're in this old fucking, not updated, huge studios. And he said, you leave for the work, and you go into the you leave for work in the dark, and you go into this cauldron, this mausoleum, and you come out and it's dark. And he says, one day it broke me, and I was like, life's too short for this quality of a life. He called the producer, David Geffen, and he was like, David, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. What will it cost me to get out? And David Geffen says, $40 million. And Brad Pitt says, and I go, okay, thank you. And it took the anxiety off of him. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to fucking do this then, because I'm not going to do it. But yeah, and then he does go on to say that the script was written by Anne Rice herself, her first shot at writing a screenplay. Pitt hadn't seen it until 2 weeks before shooting started. When he did finally get a copy, he realized that everything in Rice's book that was interesting about his character was gone. So here he was, a rising young actor and budding sex symbol, stuck in an uninteresting passive role. In the book, you have this guy asking, who am I? It's probably the most applicable to me. Am I good? Am I one of the angels? Am I bad? Am I the devil? In the book, it's great. And then, you know, then it's nothing. Huh.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can see that.
That is interesting.
I mean, I guess that's the thing. It's like it wasn't written well, and he knew that, and that was a big part of his burnout and in there. So that's really interesting to see or hear. I mean, God, being in that place where you don't want to be there, and then you have to wear the wig and the makeup and the contacts, and your sleep schedule is nothing. It sucks. That's gotta be shitty.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least you are living a vampire's life. That's kind of cool. In a sense of digging in and pulling that out performance wise. But
yeah,
I think that like the night shooting stuff consistently, I think that's a pretty common thing that wears on people. I remember Kit Harington had huge issues with the Battle of Winterfell. It was like 40, 50 nights
because
in a row.
it was like all night shoots.
Yeah. And it sucked. Didn't turn out good.
Yeah,
it looked great. Technically speaking, it was fine. But yeah, I mean, that just makes it, that sucks. That makes it like that. And at least for Brad Pitt, you know, this movie is viewed as a classic.
I think he's doing okay.
Yeah, and it's not a bad film. It's still relevant today. People talk about it. They watch it. They love it. You know, something of a cult following maybe if we're not considering it a good film, but
I wonder if it's because it is sort of like it's kind of like got an old classic feel. Like it feels like an old Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
With you got the big stars, you've got like the obvious sets. And that's what I was trying to say like when I first started. It's like it feels like an old big movie where it's like we've got these sets, we've got these huge actors, Antonio Banderas, Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt. Oh my gosh, huge big actors. And then like it's sort of like this classic tale of vampire, like, which is inherently sort of sexy, and like it spans so much time, and so it's also got sort of like the one of the things that draws John to it is sort of like the, and I'm not speaking for you, but we just talked about this in the past, where it's like people like watching period pieces innately.
Yeah.
You know, watching sexy Tom Cruise and sexy Brad Pitt dress up in Victorian garb and suck each other's blood, and like, you know, this is crazy. Like it holds a special sort of like feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting movie for Tom Cruise to be in.
Yeah, it's fun to look at for the costume period piece, seeing them go through different time periods. It's fun to see Tom Cruise in a role like this, where he's kind of he's like he's in control, but not at the same time. He's fighting for control and power, like over these people as in an abusive relationship. But he's also like, I don't know. It's just it's a very complicated and desperate role, which is cool to see him play.
Very interesting role because it's very much like he's the winner, but he also loses a bunch. Like it's, I don't know. It's fun because I feel like you don't often see Tom Cruise lose, even though like it feels like he does pick, he does pick roles that are like, I will lose, you know, but like only so that then he can win. Whereas like this one feels like he's chewing on the sides, giving it like flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting. It's very fun.
Yeah.
And I think this is like outside of the sort of like terrible accents or whatever, which I'm sure was a discussion where it's like, listen, I'm Tom Cruise. How much of an accent do you want me to do? Or like, I'm Brad Pitt. How much of an accent do you want me to do?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it's still fun. And again, kind of going back to like sort of the thing is Anne Rice hated them both being cast. She said it was the worst crime in the name of casting since Bonfire of the Vanities, likening it to the casting of Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer as her lead bloodsuckers. She would later take it all back after seeing the finished product.
Yeah, well, that's good. At least that happened.
Yeah, that's nice. But still, it's like, it's just interesting. It's just the interesting. Very cool big stuff. How do you feel about the way that the vampires look?
Well, I think it's fine. You know, I think it looks good to me. I like it. I like that they could look like a normal person to someone who doesn't expect to be seeing vampires, but I like how they have their own look. They kind of, you know, I think they're pale, but they still have it's not obnoxious, I guess. I don't know. I liked it. I think it was cool. It totally works for me. I like the rendition of vampires. I like that they're kind of I mean, they're junkies, but they're kind of in control of it. Not really. There's like a weird confidence and swagger about their essential addiction and affliction. And like the over sexualization of it was really interesting, or the feverishness of it was really interesting. And then it makes it like really uncomfortable when you get Kirsten Dunst's character in there, and as she's like, it's really complicated and weird, and it plays with like immortality and like the fact that she's like a the Sprite complex from the Eternals, you know. Yeah. And it doesn't shy away from that stuff, which is interesting to see, and I guess in a sense nice to see that it's not like pampered, I guess. Like it has like some like kind of like no boundaries. Like, you know, children aren't off limits for these people to eat, stuff like that, whole families. Like they're truly kind of like, it's almost black comedy territory where they just truly don't give a shit and they're so flippant about life, and age actually means nothing to them. Like there's no context there. Like I think in terms of the mortality, that's the most it plays with, is that age has no meaning to them. And because humans have no meaning to them, it's not a concept. It's not something like, it's interesting. I think there's a lot of stuff with immortality and, the relationships that they have with each other that they could play with. Because, when you have the immortality trope, you have like, everyone I'm with, they get older as I see my loved ones die. But in this, you don't have that. So that showing of the, like, kind of that sense of loneliness isn't as much of a theme, because you have these companions and that's what they play with. But again, it's not conveyed well enough, where it's just not conveyed well enough. Like the fact that Brad Pitt's character turns down Antonio Banderas comes across as petty and conceited and weird, when he should I feel like
there's an opportunity choice.
There's an opportunity there to be like, I'm done. I've lost 2 people, and that's too much for me.
I'm gonna hang out with you, so we're good.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't want to get to know someone. Maybe I'm better off independent. But it's just like, but I don't believe this character, if he's tired of losing people around him. His original wife and child, thinking that he lost Lestat, and then losing Claudia, and it's just like, why? Like I also don't get, I still don't understand why he continues to live, like, especially for someone that's 200 plus years old. It's like, what is there to live? Why is he living? Like, what is, especially if he doesn't have companions, if that's something he's ruled out.
Yeah,
I just don't know. Like when he goes back to visit Lestat in modern day New Orleans, it's just like, hey, bud. And Lestat's like, oh, you're back for me? And he's like, no. And then he leaves.
No.
It's like, what did you want there? What do you want in the grand scheme of things? What was the point of the interview? The character's so bad.
You're right. Yeah, the character is pretty, like,
I don't know what he wants. And it's nice. Like, there's slivers of when he's with Lestat, and it's like, okay, he's just accepting this new life, and he's kind of like checking it out, learning. And then, but that kind of disappears. And then with Claudia, it's pretty basic. It's like, okay, he loves this girl. He's going to be a father to her. That's the most you kind of understand his intentions. But then he gets bored of her, essentially, and wants a new companion.
Well, he doesn't get bored of her, because I would say that she becomes a monster, and she becomes something that he doesn't recognize. Or he's like, I can't cosplay you as my daughter anymore. He's definitely not as, like, cool as all that. I don't know, where he's just like, yeah, well, I don't know. He just doesn't really ever really have the moral high ground that it feels like he wants to have.
Yeah, or that he
pretends, or that the movie pretends that he has.
Well, that he's all butthurt about turning the woman who very was like, I want this. He's like, I killed someone. It's like, well, A, you turned her and she wanted this. And B, have you not been killing people and been adjacent to murderers for hundreds of years now? Like, or whatever amount of years? Like, well, it's just such a disconnect. It's so bizarre.
Well, and then also, it's like, it feels like, there's a word, there's like a word or something where it's like he's like, I want to be a vampire. Yeah, it sounds great. And then whenever he learns the cost of it, which again, I guess maybe is bad salesmanship from Lestat, or good salesmanship, or whatever, where he's like, oh, dude, I gotta kill people and stuff. Oh, bro.
Yeah.
Dude, are you kidding me?
But it's like,
and I want this, bro. Come on.
Obviously, not advocating him to kill himself necessarily. Like, obviously,
that does
that's
sound
a problematic
like
suggestion.
But like, it does feel like it.
He's lived 2 to 3 lifetimes, and has not conveyed it. Like, there's the different nuance that we can't relate to as humans, where he's lived 2 lifetimes, and it's like, and he has no purpose, and like he hasn't, like, so it's like, you walk out into the sunset, literally, like this character's giving me nothing to like, nothing to cheer for, just tragedy.
Like, at least Lestat is like vibing, and he's like trying to, like, again, I'm not saying, like, all right, on one side, I'm not saying go out and do murders, hell yeah, it's the best thing. But on the other side, I'm not saying like kill yourself. You got nothing to live for. But it is like, yo, Brad Pitt, Louis, what are you doing, bro? Like you're not even like your apartment's boring as shit. You're not even like learning how to be a rock star, or you're not like solving mathematic equations. You're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Or like, and it's like I think that's one of the things that if I was immortal, it's like, oh great, I have the release of the pressure of time.
Well, there's
now we can do so much, and that's like one of the like inherently you have like sort of the fault in that where it's like eventually you grow bored of continuing to grow or whatever. But there's a really interesting movie called Only Lovers Left Alive by Jim Jarmusch. I don't necessarily love it, but it's also like really, it's kind of interesting. Where Tom Hiddleston and Tilda Swinton play vampires named Adam and Eve, respectively, and then like it's just very interesting how like they both sort of like take their time, and the sort of one of the things is that vampires can't be found out, so they like one of the vampires is Kit Marlowe, who is very famously one of William Shakespeare's good friends, and like in the movie he gives Kit Marlowe Kit Marlowe gives all of his like plays and stuff to William Shakespeare so that he can be him, so that he can get his work out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's like, that's interesting. I'm watching in the background, and the scene where they got the old ladies and the old lady and the dogs and stuff, and Louis is like, oh, I got this lady, and she's ready to get her blood drank, and he's like, actually, I'm gonna eat these dogs instead.
Yeah,
and it's just like
you can kill dogs, which makes sense as a farmer. Essentially, he has no qualms with that. He doesn't hesitate there. But it's also like such a weird.
The lady still dies though.
Yeah,
like he doesn't like. Lestat comes over and breaks her neck, and it's like, well, now you don't get to like
eat her.
It'd be like if you had a steak in front of you, and again, not advocating for murder. But it's like, fuck. Why? I don't know. It's like he's made out to be this big philosopher and stuff, and he just kind of comes across as petulant and like scared of his own life. Whereas like, if instead of doing it the way Lestat does it, where he's just like rampantly killing shit tons of people, if like they were like, hey, let's figure out and let's figure out a good way to do this.
Yeah.
Like there's no further thought. They're just like, it's either all murder or it's killing all the doves in the coop.
Well, even
and
like
it's like there's no
Armando
in between.
He's like shown some evolution, I guess, with the boy, like using him kind of as a constant feeder or something. So there's one he has, like he's keeping this boy alive. Arguably, I don't. It's not really explored there, but yeah. So it's like he was with Lestat and he was teaching him this one way to live as a vampire, and maybe if he was stuck with Antonio Banderas' character, like maybe he could have learned other ways. It's still weird and unethical, but
yeah,
it's a different solution, and there's probably there's ways,
Yeah, I mean, it just like feels like he wastes so much time moaning about it that he then fucks it up.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's one thought I had about like
give it to me.
His purpose to live or what keeps him going, and it's I don't think it's enough, but it is delved into when he's talking about like the invention of movies, and I was like, oh, I can see color again, and it's like maybe he's just a huge cinephile, and like that's his like he just loves consuming content, and that's what gave him purpose. And like it's not that's not what's said, but it's almost like I'm picking that up right now, and maybe that's with what I'm given. I'm assuming maybe he just likes movies, and like it's a way he can like live and kind of drone through life. I don't know. It's a stretch, but it's what the movie gave me.
Huh. I could see that. I'm about that. Like if he's like been waiting this whole time for it. And then like yeah, I don't know. I think that it's like,
and maybe that's why he wants to interview, because he wants his story to be made into a story or something.
yeah, he's like, make a movie. Make a movie starring Brad Pitt
as me
for me to be in. That's me.
And then this is all meta.
Oh man. I like that. That's a good vibe for me. Yeah, I don't know. So what do you like about this movie? We've been talking shit on Louis.
Yeah. I really like the period piece stuff. I really love the kind of immortality thing, changing around and seeing things and technology progress, a constant, it's like fish out of water as we see it, but essentially they're progressing through times, and like these wise takes on things, and like the ultimate experience of living multiple lifetimes, and the insight that gives them, and like sometimes like the insignificance they view mortals is always interesting, and that dynamic that when there's interaction between a mortal and an immortal, which you don't get too much in this movie, but it gives me enough to like make my head spin and like think of, not head spin, but like my mind race and think of just different stuff and cool themes and stuff to play with. Like it made me want to write and explore a story myself with like people who are immortal. And I don't know what that would look like. Obviously you have the Eternals, big superhero gods. You have got the Guardians, where they're like these weird unknown warriors that just keep coming back, and they have vampires. So it's like, I want to be original, but I don't know how to, because like there's all these different attempts, but it's like something fun I'd want to play with, because I love history.
Yeah,
and it's really interesting, and I would just want to interpret how the internal monologue of technology and things changing, which you do get a sense of, I guess, with the movies, but yeah.
I really like the as far as like immortal stories, I love the idea of someone like who discovers the secret to immortality or whatever, and just uses it to like live out vastly different lives. You know what? I'm gonna party for 100 years. Or like, you know what? I'm gonna be a fucking pirate for a couple 100 years. Actually, you know what? I'm done being a pirate. I'm just gonna hang out on a beach for a while and like figure out science. I don't know. Yeah,
well, I think that's the cool thing too about some of these immortals things is how they live their life. And when people notice they don't age, how that works, And I think a cool thing with this, which I don't explore, which is fine, but is like vampire, like obviously just kind of murdering someone every night in like colonial to like just any antebellum style. I don't know, just that setting like is a lot easier than it were to be in modern times. And so like, because they're so just killing people, just fucking going for it, It would be super interesting to see how they keep that up in modern times, and if they can't, how that impacts them, because they're always hungry and going crazy, or whatever. It'd be really interesting to explore.
Yeah, I would watch The Only Lovers Left Alive, because that is kind of what you're talking about, where it's sort of like the end of it. Not the end of it, but it's what you're talking about, where it's like, hey, it's 2010. How does these vampires who've been alive for forever, how does this how does this affect them?
Yeah,
it's kind of a, but it's it's a lot more sort of like conversational and stuff than it is like exciting and action, but it is like it very much like the things that you were just talking about.
Yeah, I don't necessarily need the action, so it's cool. I like Tom Hiddleston, so
yeah, Tom Hiddleston, Tilda Swinton, Jeffrey Wright. Oh man, I can't remember the guy who plays Kit Marlowe in that movie.
This review pretty much sums up what you said. Pretty slow, but I don't mind. 3.5 stars by Terry.
Yeah, Terry, you got it, but dude,
Booed.
you got it, but you got it. Yo, what if Wordle is like just like low-key marketing for the Batman movie?
Oh. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a UK subdomain though, or domain. So that would be
whatever.
Unnecessary.
But where did they shoot the Batman? They shot it in England.
That would be crazy.
Hot take. Coming to you fast. Coming to you hot. Coming to you sexy.
And that's just a theory. A film theory.
That's just a theory. Yeah, baby.
Did you get today's?
I like. No, I don't. I haven't played that game.
Ever?
I haven't played that game yet. No, I haven't played it ever yet.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I dabbled. Starting to get in. It's like, dabbled. All right, it's fun. You only play once a day, so it's truly like a toilet game, which is cool.
Yeah. Toilet game. Let's all play toilet game.
That's what they say.
I like how I like in this movie how they treat vampires. I don't like Louis, but I do like how they treat vampires. Like how like the ladies drinking their blood, like getting their blood drank, are like, hey,
euphoric.
oh, this is great. They're like, ooh, this is great stuff. And then it like takes them a second to be like, wait a second. You just bit my boobie and I'm just bleeding. I'm just bleeding, bro.
Yeah.
This ain't cool.
I think that's because he let her because normally they do it to the point of almost death and they stop. But I think
yeah.
Which I like that, and I like that you can't suck the blood of something dead, which is also like, why did he kill the rat and then spew the blood into the goblet? Why was that okay?
Yeah.
But
well, and then also it's like we're talking about like immortality stuff, but there is such an interesting thing where everything becomes so much less as an immortal, where you're like, yeah, no, they're having a bad time, and like, you know, I'm torturing them sort of, but like it's gonna be fine in the end.
Yeah,
you know, like
the end
such
will
a
be
weird
the same. Like she's gonna die, so it doesn't matter. I don't know. Like to him, it doesn't matter. She's gonna die. The end is the same no matter what. Where Brad Pitt's seeing active suffering and stuff, but then at the same time, Lestat's like, she's suffering, dude. Like you could end it. You know, it's a weird flippancy, but understanding at the same time. Where they were
like,
kind of like on different ends of the spectrum at the time. Like Tom Cruise didn't care, but he understood what he was doing.
But he does care. He's not like callous. Like he's cold to it, but he's like the same. He's just, again, sort of like that perspective of like,
well, to him it was like a Hail Mary. It's like, this is what I'm going for to make you understand. If you don't understand, then I kind of give up. It's kind of the vibe there.
But also like for just like, it's like fundamentally different views on being vampire, being immortal, because there's like, you got Louis who's like, I'm a human, I shouldn't kill other humans, I shouldn't do this, I'm a monster. And then Lestat is like, I gave you this like incredible gift of time for forever, and like you get to, you don't have to make the murder thing your main thing. And it's like, sometimes I'm an evil person and I just kill the shit out of people, but also like for the most part, this isn't like you're making this, and this is the sense that I get, where he's like, you're making this more about the murder than it needs to be. Like, that is like one big part of it, but like, there's other shit, bro. Do you disagree?
No, I agree. I think like,
okay,
he can
You
come
can
across.
disagree. It's
He
fine.
like he can come across as like a callous monster, but I think he's just. But then also like Armando's like, yeah, fuck that guy. But maybe they're just disgruntled exes too. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, I think ultimately
like, it doesn't mean like, but it's just like for Armando, they have different sort of like approaches to the same thing. Where Armando is just like, I'm just gonna like kind of vibe with it and keep this one little boy around and suck his blood for forever, and that's like its own sort of like
Yikes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah. So I don't know. It's just an interesting sort of like where the focus is. But I do still like the sort of like the period aspect of it.
Yeah. I like that it lives in it. You know, like it doesn't move around fast. Like it kind of lives in each period a decent amount, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's
It
obviously
does feel like a longer movie than it is, which is not necessarily a good sign because it's only 2 hours long. It's not as long as it's like the same amount as Akira, and like Akira moves, bro. Whereas this movie is sort of like it's good and bad, where it's like it sits and like each moment feels like long and blah blah blah. But then there's also sort of a sense of, yeah, we're sitting through it.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I mean, there's a part where I'm like, I just know enough about story structure. I'm like, they still got to do these things, and it's like,
Yeah.
mimes looking at watch. It's like, geez, you know. And
Oh,
to me,
we're not there yet. We're not there. Oh, jeez.
and then the ending was even satisfying because again, I don't know what the point of the interview was. I don't know where it's gonna go. And then the stats like,
You know, it's so funny.
and then the stats like, I'm back, baby. I'm dumped.
Here I am, boy.
I Like to me, like I don't buy that he was pitifully waiting for 150 years for 130, 120, 110 years, whatever, for Brad Pitt.
I think he was chilling.
What?
I think he was chilling, and like Brad Pitt just happened to be the one who came.
Yeah, maybe.
Honestly, that's how I jive with it.
But their more immortality isn't long enough. Also, like
I think Lestat's been around for a while though.
yeah, I mean, no. Well, Armando says I'm the oldest vampire there is, and he said 400 years old. I'm like, that's not that old for like immortal beings. Like
Yeah.
And like that's either means there's like a hubris and they kill each other off, you know, it's hard to live a long time, or they're new or something. Like it just isn't clear. And again, it's headcanon and stuff, or like it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. It's just why, like, what, like let's say Lestat's 300 years old by the time he sits down and decides to wait. 300 years isn't living long enough where 100 years feels inconsequential, or 80 years. Whatever.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Like, that's still a long time, you know?
Yeah.
And it'd be one thing if he's thousands of years old, like, totally. I buy it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, in the graphic novel series, Guardians, I think it's called, one of them betrayed them. One of the members betrays them. And he kind of comes around and helps them out, but like, you fucked up. So we'll see in 100 years.
I mean, you gotta.
And they like that's his penance. It's 100 years, but like it's long.
That's still a long time. Like even
yeah.
if you're only 1,000 years, if you're 1,000 years old, like that is 100 years is 10%, which is like a pretty long time.
Yeah, but then like you have like some of the characters are thousands of years old, so it's I don't know. You should read the Guardian graphic novel series, and the movie is not great, but it's good enough to have a good time and explore these themes of immortality. Like that's why I like I like that in Eternals that play with that theming. The most fun I've ever seen, and
yeah,
this has a setting that can satisfy that, but it ultimately doesn't. But
the largesse of time and stuff.
Yeah, the long just life being long and
so Lestat is born November 7th, 1760.
So he's not that old.
And
that's also Christian's birthday.
Yeah.
That's just funny.
Oh. Wow.
We got Lestat's Scorpio. That explains. That honestly explains a lot.
What does that mean? What are you talking about, bro?
A Scorpio.
Are you fucking slandering us?
Yeah, you're a Scorpio too.
Yeah, I'm a Scorpio. October 27th, baby.
Scorpios are just they're
We just on one.
They're extra. I don't know.
We just on one.
I mean, all my
one of the people who does improv with me, she's big into that stuff, and I like told her my houses, and I think it's my houses or whatever. It's like I'm a main Scorpion person, and like my house that's important too is Cancer, and she's like, "Oh God, I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "But it's very annoying." Or my moon is in Cancer or something, and she's like, "Ooh boy, I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "What does that mean?" And then like, it's fucking crazy, that stuff where it's like, she's like, "Yeah, this is what's going on," and I'm like, "Hey, guess what? Shut up. It's not real. Get out of here." And she's like, "Well," and I'm like, "Well, shut up, okay? I don't want to hear about it because it's not real."
Yeah.
All right. But then, it does.
Well, I got a hard pivot for you.
Hard pivot for me.
Is this gay enough? Could be gayer. Not gay enough.
I think it could
for
be
you.
gayer. I think it should be gayer. I think that that's one of the things that, and again, I don't know, I haven't read the books, but I feel like
this was made today from the original source material. Do you think it'd be different? I guess, is that what you're hinting at?
Maybe because I really feel like the relationship and like the seduction of Louis would be much better explained if he was also being literally seduced by Lestat. Because it's like we sort of like hint at that, but I think that if like we see Lestat and Louis just like, they don't like, it doesn't like a romantic seduction where like, I think that's one of the things that sort of like breaks this movie, where it's like, I don't know why Louis stays with Lestat if he so clearly doesn't vibe with him.
Yeah. There's the codependency isn't clear until the daughter's brought in, but it's like they haven't tried leaving him. Like if they tried leaving him and he was like he doesn't hold enough over her or them both to keep them in. But that's also like emotionally abusive relationships too. Is like you and conditioning and being stuck in that thing and thinking that is reality. That is your reality is another part of that too. But it's again.
But I
it's
think
not
we can
explored.
see more of that. Like here. All right. So like let me pitch this to you. Mid 1820s New Orleans farmer guy. He's a sexy boy, but he loses his wife and kid. Oh man, he's going out. He's like fucking Pirates of the Caribbean. Everything tastes like ash in his mouth. The finest pleasures in all the land could not bring you pleasure. There's nothing that's great. And then finally, he meets Lestat. Lestat is like, bro, let's fucking get into some crazy shit. And then him and Louis get into some crazy shit. Lestat is like, hey, you want to be a vampire, baby? And Louis is like, we've already gotten into some crazy shit. You're pretty fun, dude. You're giving me like a little like feel for adventure. And then Lestat is like, guess what? You're a vampire now, baby. And Louis is like, oh, fucking okay, all right, this is crazy. And then like there can be a little bit more of like, again, I haven't read the book, so maybe this is how it is in the book. But it's like Lestat, like where it's like maybe Louis is like, hey, hold on, I come from the 1820s. Am I allowed to be a gay guy? And Lestat is like, but you love me, baby. And Louis is like, oh, maybe I do, but also I don't love murder. And Lestat is like, hey, maybe you do. Yeah. I don't know. I just think that there's a more interesting story there if we get really, it's like just seeing all facets of the relationship, because like it's like hinted and implied that they're like fucking or have some sort of romantic entanglement.
Yeah, well,
but I think it's
like,
more interesting if we dive into a little bit more instead of like scraping the surface of it.
Yeah, well, I don't mean to say it as like another way to say a homosexual marriage, but to me it feels truly like a domestic partnership. Like they're just partners in a house. They do have like it's not like it's weird because there's the sexual charged nature of the sucking blood, and like there's an arousal weird thing there where they share that first girl together. Like, but it also truly feels like co-parenting partners in a house.
Yeah,
Which is hard to say and believe in this movie when there's the sexual blood sucking adjacent to it.
I mean, there's just so much tension, like, and it's like it's not fulfilled tension, and it's not paid off.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see a lonely, downtrodden guy on the edge of life, you know, just about to give up, you know, especially of the period, you know, where like a gay relationship is just so far off his limit, even if he is bisexual to homosexual or whatever. But like,
but he doesn't know. I think that's one of the things where it can be like both sides, where he's like, oh, I don't know that this is something that I could explore. And then also like, I didn't know I could be a vampire. So it's like,
yeah, I think
I don't know
if they went into it slower, where he's a comfort, it's a self-discovery. You know, like maybe he finds comfort in some kind of self-actualization of his sexuality,
yeah,
or something like that. Like that, I can buy. You know, I can buy that allure, that being at your lowest, and that entrenchment too was something that brought you happiness and a new life. You know, a new perspective, because that would be an awakening, a new perspective for him to discover that side of himself. You know,
yeah,
and that would endear him, and it's just not there. You know, and maybe that's a product of the time.
Finding
of being
that sort of like
a 1990s movie, you know, with two huge Hollywood stars playing kind of gay roles. You know, like the fact that it was made at all to me feels progressive at the time.
Yeah.
So, but
it also it feels progressive in a way that's like, look how cheeky we're being. Like,
yeah.
You're gonna fucking like this because it's these two dudes, and you're not gonna like. It's like, I don't know. It feels like it's like really cheeky, false progressive.
Yeah.
But it does feel still like sort of. I mean, I don't know. Who am I to say? But yeah, I just think that, you know, we could see more facets of the relationship, because it is. It's like that sort of like quest for wholeness over the course of eternity as an immortal is a lot more interesting as you get to sort of like become whole with yourself, even while being sort of a monster.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's a much more interesting story than the one that we do see.
Yeah.
I also just want to like.
We talked about it last week,
like,
but this is a movie that definitely makes a lot of sense to be remade, to me.
Yeah. Yeah. With Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise still playing the same parts.
I mean, sure. I think Brad Pitt's aged way better.
Yeah.
Because he's also hasn't fought aging as bad. He's definitely fought it. It'd be dumb to believe that, but
I mean, well, it's like, I guess what the question is like, is working out and eating good, is that fighting aging? Or is he just trying to stay healthy? Whereas like Tom Cruise is like, nope, not me. You're not going to see it.
Yeah.
I'm 60. Fuck you. It's an interesting case study or whatever.
Yeah.
I just want to like, so Louis goes on this whole adventure of not killing people and being a good boy. And then finally he gives in. And the first person that he goes to like, now's a good time to suck somebody's blood is a young girl who's mourning her mother. And it's like, there couldn't be a worse. Like, with your moral high ground, Louis, why now?
Yeah, but
like, why not?
And then I love his friend walking in. I'm like, oh, this is Rich. You fucking weirdo.
Yeah. No, he comes in. He's like, this bro. Like, now, like, you have all these like fully grown adult women and men who are like into it. You know, they could be into it and be about it, and they would never know. But there's this little girl who's mourning, and you're like, I'm gonna terrify her in her last moments.
But
it's like,
and it doesn't like explore, like if he had a daughter, it doesn't really explain it, but it's also like maybe that explains his vulnerability. It's just in terms of like comforting. I don't know. I just don't. I can't wrap my head around the why. I think it kind of just happens. Is maybe the simple of it, but it is weird, you know. And then they touch like they kind of skirt around them. Like truly like there's a father-daughter relationship, but obviously she's aging, you know, like her eyes change.
She's aging mentally.
And so it's like they don't. There's the word lover is thrown around them. I don't think like physically so, but like emotionally so. Like I think their relationship ages, and it explores that with various side stuff because you have to, because it's really fucking weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It's so weird. I don't know how to talk about it. And
yeah,
they did the best they could, I guess. But that's what happens when you play with this, you know, with this kind of stuff in this story.
Yeah. It's interesting that like some of the big vampire stuff touches on like, hey, you know how fucked up it would be to turn a kid into a vampire?
Yeah.
You know? It would be pretty fucked up.
Yeah, that's what they even said. They're like, you turned her way too young. That's nothing we would ever do.
Yeah.
So they already like,
and then like
fuck her, and she's like, she killed a vampire. So like, there's proof or something. Like she's a bad one because she shouldn't exist and she did something bad that we shouldn't do.
Yeah. Well, and then there's also like in Twilight where they're like, hey, whoa, you had a tiny baby. Vampire, that is not cool. Don't do that.
Yeah, to your point, it's weird, and I do like how acknowledged it is in terms of Tom Cruise's character, just shitting on him. It's like in terms of the flippancy and like the weird flippancy and morals they have, it was a very perfect reaction.
Yeah, it's just like it's just very funny, like, and sort of like is a good example of how confusing a character Louis is, where it's just like, now this is the time that your moral high ground is gonna
go away.
Like, what the fuck? Why am I supposed to like you? And then like, and then it's just like completely in character of Lestat to be like, guess what? Hey, I'm not sure what you're thinking here, bud, but guess what? You have a daughter now. And then like, I don't know. It's very interesting, the progression of that. But it really starts with Louis being just kind of just hard to like.
Yeah. Also, when he cries and Christian Slater's like, oh, so you do cry. And he's like, I cry once every, like barely. And he like cries all the fucking time in the movie. It's just like, I don't know if that's something you noticed, but
I don't know if I did. I don't think I noticed that off the bat.
It's just like, I guess it's just a sense of writing. The example of this character
like
just
the
being fucking all over the place.
Yeah. Like it would be the obvious choice for Brad. Like here's again rewriting this. It's like Brad Pitt sees that she becomes a monster. She can never be what she wants to be, and it's like it's a big step for him to have to kill her. You know, like there maybe we'll action movie it up a little bit, and it's like he's gotta hunt her and her nanny vampire down and kill him and make that sort of sacrifice. Yeah, because they're out of control or doing fucking crazy dude. And it's like, so
weird flick.
There's Interview with the Vampire. Weird flick. Cool. It's cool in that it's like, again, in that same way that I just were at the beginning, where it's like, hey, this feels like an old Hollywood movie, where it feels like, it just feels like an old Hollywood movie.
Yeah. I concur.
Almost like a parody of an old Hollywood movie.
Yeah. There's times where the tone is so interesting. It's like, oh, are we going to go Matthew Vaughn territory? But we don't. Sometimes it flirts with that, I feel.
Yeah. But yeah. What do you give this movie, sweet friend? Oh, look at him. He's crying right now on my screen.
Yep.
That's funny.
I gave it 4 initially, but I've bumped it down. Actually, I bumped down to 3.5, and then kept talking. Like, I bumped it down to 3, and it feels like a high 3 still. So I really
What did I get
enjoyed my time watching in a sense, but it
Yeah.
always felt hollow at this. Like it's just a weird movie. I wish it was better. I want to see it remade.
I don't know if we need to see it remade. I think that there's a more interesting version of this story.
Well, yeah. I think like I think it would be remade better, and explored. I mean, I'm not talking like shot for shot remake. I'm talking about your Taika Waititi reimagined.
Yeah, you know what, Taika? Don't do Akira. Do this movie.
I mean, that would be sick if he did it.
He already did. He did what we do in the shadows. That's much better.
So he has vampire experience. I still need to watch that.
It is very good.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what'd you give it?
I'm gonna give it 3 porcelain dolls. 3 porcelain dolls on a bed covering my dead window bather.
Right, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
It's never happened before on this podcast.
We both liked Akira last week.
I'm kidding.
So.
We've shared ratings many times. I'm just being dumb. But yeah.
No, you're not dumb. Listen, I'm not trying to take you down, but
spoiler alert,
yeah,
we filmed this back to back with Akira. So nothing new on the watch unless you saved some. But I haven't there's nothing to add there.
No, I watched I watched nothing. I watched Akira for about an hour. And then I'm in the midst of watching Interview with the Vampire for about an hour. So that's what I watched.
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
What are you talking about?
But I get it. Same here.
That's crazy, dude.
Wow.
What do you want to watch? What's on your horizon since we don't have anything we did watch?
I want to finish Hawkeye.
Okay. You haven't finished Hawkeye yet?
No. It's
Are you like living life?
No,
it's
watching it with my girlfriend, but she's really bad about being motivated to watch TV shows or being in the mood. So like,
how dare
we
her?
can be hung up on a TV show for a while.
Gotcha.
So that's what the deal is there. Yeah, it's like,
gotcha.
She's actually not a binger, which is interesting.
That's
like,
good. That's honestly,
rare.
that's a skill.
Yeah,
that's a skill these days. That's a talent, I would say.
Yeah, but yeah,
yeah. I'm gonna watch. Oh, I watched The Legend of Vox Machina. I didn't, and I'm looking forward to continuing to watch that on Amazon Prime.
Oh, nice. So is that very D&D heavy, right?
Yeah, I mean it's not D. I don't know if you would say it's essentially just like
fantasy.
Sort of like an animated fantasy show.
Cool.
You know, it's based on. Honestly, I don't know. I didn't listen to Campaign 1, but it's based on Campaign 1 of Critical Role.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely need to try that.
Yeah, it's fun. They're like 25-minute episodes, 25 to 30-minute episodes, it seems like. And it seems like it's pretty fun.
Cool.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to continuing to watch Book of Boba Fett and then talking about it with you. Yeah. How many episodes are there in that? Is it going to finish this Wednesday or do you know what? Disney has done such a good job with their release schedule, just like
it's
making sure that there's always something.
Yeah. Well, they also stagger shows between like
their different properties.
Well, no, they like say if it's a nine episode show, they'll spread that out along as many months as possible. So if the final episode comes out the first week of June, instead of ending
they do
at
a
the
good
end
job.
of the month. Yeah. Yeah.
They do a good job with it.
But as they say in New Orleans,
how you gonna like your beignet, bro?
Nice. So find us in all the other places: Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Shirts are available at jtmerch.com.
Creole accent, and you're doing a freaking.
And then as they say in Paris,
is in Paris? Oh, we're in Paris now. We're not in
England.
New Orleans.
Old England.
Oh,
and Paris.
In England. Oh, hello. I'm here in England. What's up? Just doing all my different accents. Give me another place. I'll say goodbye there too. Yeah, give me some biscuits.
Ukraine.
hello, I'm in Ukraine. We are getting invaded. This is general Eastern European accent.
That's how we do it. That's how we go out.
Hey, we love you. Goodbye.
Bye.